If you ask your best friend to tamper with evidence and delete text messages, if you threatened her by leaking personal information unless she publicly supported you, what does that say about the truth you're protecting? In this video, we're going to dive deeper into how I believe that Blake Lively has been manipulating Taylor Swift for years, how credible this anonymous source that has tipped off Brian Friedman, Justin Baldoni's lawyer, actually is, what Ryan Reynolds is really up to behind the scenes, and what Blake Lively's only option is from here on out. Hey everyone, welcome back to AshleyB TV. I'm a former TV news reporter who takes you behind the headlines. If you love deep dives as much as we do, hit that subscribe button, join the Beehive, introduce yourself in the comments, and help us reach our next goal of 10,000 subscribers. Without further ado, let's get into it. The more I've been analyzing this case and the recent information that Baldoni's lawyer Brian Friedman just released, the more you have to let that sink in and say, what does this actually mean? I believe that Blake Lively has essentially confessed that she's been guilty this entire time. And here's why when you dive deeper into the relationships between best friends. So Baldoni's lawyer alleges, quote, a source who is highly likely to have reliable information shared that Lively asked Swift to, quote, delete specific text messages. And he says in this filing that he's spoken with this source multiple times on the phone. Brian Friedman doesn't play around when it comes to this stuff. We're going to dive deeper into what type of lawyer he actually is. I mean, he's a top litigator in the country, but when you really think about it, Blake Lively and Taylor Swift have been best friends for over 10 years. And when you ask someone to tamper with evidence, when you're in the middle of a lawsuit and you ask them to delete text messages to your best friend, that says so much. It essentially says the information I provided to you is going to contradict the evidence that I need in court. Whereas if Blake Lively was telling the truth in all of this, when it comes to the sexual harassment allegations, the smear campaign allegations, that could have been great evidence. Hear me out. Now, according to the legal guides and Bar Association resources, and also the Department of Justice prosecutorial training manuals, in a lot of cases involving sexual harassment or sexual assault allegations, whether they're criminal or civil, some of the most common questions lawyers will ask include, did you tell anyone about the incident? Were there any witnesses? When did you first disclose the incident? Do you have any physical evidence or documentation? RAINN, the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, has detailed articles that explain the investigation and trial process, including the importance of what they call outcry witnesses. And these are the first people the victim told, and how behavior and reporting timelines often affect investigations. So if Blake Lively was telling the truth, then she would have asked Taylor to save her text messages because she would have been an outcry witness, someone she went to right when it happened and said, look at what happened. So for Blake Lively to instead ask Taylor Swift to delete her text messages and tamper with evidence, it tells us that she's directly contradicting what she told Taylor and what she's alleging in her lawsuit. In my opinion, this tells us everything that we need to know, because if she is telling Taylor a completely different story than what she wants the world to know, then this whole lawsuit could be thrown out. And we've said on this channel that Taylor Swift's silence speaks volumes. And I was actually watching the show Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, and they talk about the importance of public support and how that might not mean a lot to someone like you and me, like a friend commenting on our Instagram saying, great job at your conference you spoke at. But showing public support when it comes to someone with millions of followers, someone like Taylor Swift, I mean, you're gonna be watching every action she does on social media, right? Her public support, or lack thereof, speaks volumes. And for her not to publicly support Blake Lively, her best friend, to me was everything we needed to know since the beginning. Why hasn't she supported Blake Lively since the beginning of all of this? And I strongly believe it's because she knows that Blake Lively isn't telling the truth, or at least the full truth. Now, we talked about how Friedman also alleged that Lively's lawyers contacted Swift's legal team and, quote, demanded that Miss Swift release a statement of support for Miss Lively. He also said they were intimidating that if Miss Swift refused to do so, private text messages of a personal nature in Miss Lively's possession would be released. Let that sink in. Why would you have to threaten your best friend to leak private text messages? And also, Why would you be saving these private text messages in the first place if you weren't planning on using them? And this leads into another major point that we're going to break down, which is Blake Lively's long lead press. In my opinion, this also shows how long Blake Lively has really been plotting to use the power of Taylor Swift behind the scenes for years to save 10 plus years of text messages. She's almost had this perfect blackmail for years to use her global pop icon friend. And it's such a shame because Taylor Swift has also said in her Vogue 70 Questions interview from back in the day, I'm sure Steve Flaw, who's been reporting on this since the beginning, shared this clip where Taylor Swift said she's so happy that throughout the years she tells her best friends everything and they haven't leaked anything to the press.
What surprises you most about people?
I'm pleasantly surprised by the fact that I tell my friends absolutely everything and it never ends up getting out.
And unfortunately, what we're seeing is that Taylor Swift's biggest paparazzi has been her best friend alongside of her for 10 plus years, waiting to use her personal information against her from the beginning. This blackmail seems to have been planned for years. Also, what's extremely telling is that Taylor Swift's team has not come out and said that these allegations are false. And again, this should raise red flags, raise the bells for all of us who have been following this case. Why isn't Taylor Swift saying none of this is true, what Baldoni's team is saying? No, instead, a spokesperson for Swift denied the pop star had any connection to the film besides licensing her song My Tears Ricochet, which was featured in the movie's trailer and used in one scene. Now, it's getting messy because this is directly contradicting what Blake has said multiple times, saying that Taylor Swift was alongside her in this filmmaking process since the beginning. It also contradicts what Justin Baldoni himself has admitted in public interviews, saying that Taylor also was involved in the filmmaking process, like casting Isabel Ferreira, who played the young Blake Lively, and a few other key decisions, like appearing at Blake Lively's home. But you have to wonder, did Taylor even know that Justin Baldoni would be there in the first place, or was this all again to manipulate and use her dragons? Taylor's team continues to tell us she never set foot on the set, she was not involved in any casting or creative decisions, which seems to go against what everyone else has said. So now again, it is getting messy. They also say she did not score the film, she never saw an edit or made any notes on the film. Swift's team also emphasizes that she didn't even see the film until weeks after it was released, and this tells me that they're trying to tell us, like, she was not invested in this film. She was being a good friend and supporting them and giving them the song, but that is it. Obviously, this contradicts everything that we've heard from everyone else. So this is getting so messy, folks. Now, many are speculating that it was Taylor Swift or her team themselves who released to Justin Baldoni and have been collaborating with Justin Baldoni's team and releasing this information that she's been blackmailed and that there could be possible extortion playing out, because this is a very strong allegation and it would have needed to be someone that would be very close to Taylor Swift in order to make this allegation. The more I analyze this, the more I realize, wouldn't your DMs and your text messages to your best friend actually help your case? Wouldn't it be evidence that they were your outcry witness, that it would support your case, that it would go against everything that the defendant is claiming? Why would deleting text messages even be necessary unless there was something to hide? And others are speculating that there could be even more to hide because Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively, they have undeniable chemistry on screen. Watching that movie was like so juicy because they look like they were in love, and many people are speculating that Blake Lively could have developed a crush on Justin Baldoni. I don't know if these are things that people would put in text messages, but there's clearly something that Blake Lively is hiding if there are text messages to delete. If we were to analyze the relationship between Blake Lively and Taylor Swift from over a decade, it appears that Blake Lively has been staging this for years in what Meghan Markle would call long lead press. It's like planting the seed of something until you're able to use it. And now Blake Lively can finally use her connection to Taylor Swift to essentially blackmail her, allegedly. And the biggest clue into this is that she made Taylor Swift the godmother to 4 of her children. Now, we have seen recently Blake Lively make appearances with not Taylor Swift or Gigi Hadid or any of her friends, but more so her sisters. And I never really followed Blake Lively that closely before this case, but in what I've seen in her past and what I've been researching, she was never really making huge public appearances with her sister Robin and her other sister that I don't even know the name of. If you're that close to your sisters, why wouldn't you have made your sisters the godmother to your children? And instead, the biggest global pop icon in the world, who probably doesn't have as much time to invest into your children as your own family would. Why would you do that? It was strategic. It was to connect you and this global pop icon for life in a very deep and meaningful way. In a way that says, Taylor, you're not just my best friend, but now you're family. And family stands by each other. We've seen this throughout the years with the constant paparazzi moments of Blake and Taylor holding each other, of them holding hands, of them hugging. And to me, all of those moments throughout these years have really screamed like, this is my best friend. Like, I want this to be known. And celebrities know when they're being watched, especially when you're at a Kansas Chiefs game, right? Like when Blake had that huge hair and they're at the Chiefs and she's holding Taylor Swift, like she's really declaring to the world, like, this is my best friend. And it's very strategic. Also, saving text messages for over 10 years. Who does that? I don't even do that with some of my closest friends. I delete texts all the time. I delete threads because why would you save it unless you were going to use it? So many are asking, well, how credible are these anonymous tips to Brian Friedman, Baldoni's lawyer? Because Blake's team is obviously saying everything that you're saying is categorically false. Like, we do not support this. This is so wrong. You're just trying to drive up clickbait fodder. But we have to remember that Brian Friedman is not some clickbait attorney. He's one of the top litigators in Hollywood. He wouldn't be sourcing anonymous tips unless he believed they'd hold up in court. According to the May 14th letter, quote, although uncomfortable for the Lively parties, the truth is not a distraction. It's been clearly shown through unedited receipts, documents, and real-life footage. More to come. Even though Judge Lehman struck this letter to be used as evidence in court, the damage has already been done, and in the court of public opinion, Blake Lively is over. Now, Blake Lively's attorney, Mike Gottlieb, says that she's going to testify in court, and that would be huge. Everyone wishes that they could be in that courtroom, but obviously they're not letting anyone film it. Her team says they are prepared to bring witnesses from set, Sony producers, and live testimonies to back up her claims of a retaliation campaign for reporting harassment. But it's been interesting to see that everyone who initially supported Blake Lively in her claims of sexual harassment against Justin Baldoni, including Colleen Hoover, Brandon Sard, Jenny Slate, all of them are no longer backing her. And I think that speaks volumes, because why in the world would you support someone with this claim and then backpedal and take it back? I mean, to go so far as to what Colleen Hoover's been doing, which is deleting all of her posts supporting Lively from her Instagram. No one from the set currently is supporting Blake Lively and her claims. And I think that speaks volumes that they might have believed her initially, but as evidence continues to prove itself, they don't believe her now. So it'll be really interesting to see who she presents in the courtroom if it goes all the way to court that is quote unquote supporting her, and why haven't they publicly supported her yet? In my latest deep dive on this case, we talked about Ryan Reynolds and his latest interview with Conan O'Brien. If you want to watch that video, you can watch it right here and in the description below. But in this, he says a lot of things, and I talked to some Hollywood insiders, and they said this is his quiet apology tour. And obviously, we all know he's not apologizing for anything, but he's trying to rewrite the narrative of how he works with people on set and how he's very collaborative on set, and he's never the loudest person in the room, and he loves everyone having a say in production because that's when production really comes to life. He also says something I think that was really cryptic and eerie. He was recounting his time with his father, and he said, as we get older and as we get further from the actual memory, our memories start to fade, and what we once thought was something wasn't actually something. So he said, maybe I was rewriting narratives in my head, making them more romantic than they were. And I thought that was very eerie because Ryan Reynolds is insinuating sometimes our memories and our recollections aren't always what the actual moment was and what the actual truth was. To me, that was a very pointed statement that you wouldn't make when your wife is in the middle of a lawsuit where she has to recount her memories. That was quite eerie. If you want to watch that video, definitely catch up on that video next. Now, according to people.com, Fox News, all the outlets, Taylor wants no part in this drama. The friendship has halted. And then one outlet said, well, they are taking some space, but they're not no longer friends. And when something like this happens, when you feel like someone has backstabbed you, has blackmailed you, that you've trusted for over a decade, I do not see a friendship moving forward. Like, this was a long game. And to me, after all Taylor Swift has been through throughout all these years, this was probably the most gut-wrenching blackmail she's ever received. This is one of those that Taylor Swift probably never saw coming because, again, it wasn't her film. She was probably only involved to some extent. But it's one of those that's like, really? The person that's supposed to be my sister, I'm the godmother to her children, I can't like relinquish that title. You're the one who's gonna backstab me and use me? Like, everyone has tried to use me throughout the years in Hollywood, but you're gonna be the one that tries to take me down? And Taylor Swift is one of the smartest people in Hollywood. She makes the strongest PR moves, staying silent when she needs to, releasing her Easter eggs in her song and to her audience. And the biggest thing that people love about Taylor Swift is that she seems like that relatable best friend, like she's just like you and me, but she also only shares enough. Like, she only shares enough that makes us feel like we're into it and that she's telling us everything, but she's not. She's not telling us a lot ever. And the mystery of Taylor Swift is what keeps people so attached to her and keeps people wanting more. So for Blake Lively to be in her inner circle is like sacred ground. And for her to then use that inner circle against Taylor has got to be the most heart-wrenching experience and blackmail and backstabbing and undercutting that Taylor Swift has ever received. Like, now we do have to include that Blake Lively's team says we unequivocally deny all of these so-called allegations, cowardly sourced and completely untethered from reality. They also go on to say it took the court less than 24 hours to strike Friedman's accusations and warn him that further misconduct may be met with sanctions. Blake Lively's team also continues to say that Friedman and all of the Baldoni supporters just keep driving up the clickbait. They keep wanting to make this issue bigger and bigger. But I question if they're the only ones doing that or if Blake Lively is driving up headlines herself. And we are seeing public appearance after public appearance every single day from Blake Lively. She's the one that's driving up the headlines because she wants the headlines to read something other than she's lying. And I think she wants to show her confidence in all of this because she wants her supporters to know she's doing just fine. But it completely contradicts what she has claimed in her lawsuit, that this has sent her down a spiral, that this has really, bled her out in terms of her businesses, in terms of everything that she's built, and it's taken her down deeply. And there's no way the public can believe that when you're making appearance after appearance. In her latest appearance, which again, these happen daily, where she went to some 90s party and she's wearing her butterfly clips and she's wearing her Spice Girls watch, I think really tries to hone into her millennial audience saying, girls, like, I'm right here. I'm right along with you. Don't put me in the grunge. I'm a pop glitter type of girl. And really, the public doesn't want to see that, and I don't even think her supporters want to see that. She's also continuing to promote her products, which was a part of what got her in trouble in the first place when she was tying this movie that was about domestic violence to her Blake Brown hair care products and her Betty Boos. And now she's releasing like a hair misting spray. And I thought it was interesting that she released on her Instagram, you asked for it and we brought it. And I don't think anyone is asking for any products from Blake Lively right now. In fact, let's dive deeper into where we think she should go from here, because these last week's allegations, I think, showed way too much of behind the scenes, and this whole case has been fascinating. And I know a lot of Hollywood folks are following this case very closely, but they're staying very quiet about it because they're not going to make any public statement and ever come out and also make headlines. But they're following this case really closely because it's showing us really the evilness that goes on behind the scenes and the corruption of the powerful A-list Hollywood elite and the power plays that they have, which is why we've seen some publications very strongly pretty much only supporting Blake Lively, and news outlets should never be strongly supporting anyone. It makes us lose full credibility and trust in them. The New York Times is doing this. Variety has done this a few times, and it really shows like how much power do these celebrities actually have and how much money are they doling out to specific publications to stay in good standing with them. And now the people who were supporting Blake Lively this entire time but are huge Swifties, you've completely lost their vote, because if it comes down to Blake Lively or trying to threaten, allegedly, Taylor Swift, the Swifties are diehards for life, and they are not ever going to go against Taylor Swift. And we actually saw this with one of the hosts from The Toast, the podcast, when you see them like unraveling because they're seeing, wait, I supported Blake Lively this whole time, but if she's trying to blackmail Taylor Swift, like, I'm out. Like, Blake Lively has lost so many of even her supporters. And when lies come out, that's what's going to happen. When things come out like this, there's no way to continue to defend them, even for your diehards who've been defending you since the beginning.
I don't know what's true. And at first I was like, there's literally no way. There's no way. But if Blake did, like, even remotely threaten Taylor, like, Taylor's out.
Oh, I was going to say, where are you then?
Where am I? Oh, I don't know. That's such crazy behavior for Blake.
How does Turdy feel? How does this affect Turdy? Is anybody asking these questions?
I don't know. I don't know. Because this whole time I've really felt like so much of the Taylor rhetoric is like blown up. Like, what the fuck does this have to do with Taylor Swift? And I'm sorry, I just never took Taylor as like one of those friends. They have painted it up until this point that Taylor like is staying away from Blake because she doesn't want like the stain of a, you know, a scandal on her record. And I'm like, that's really lame. Like, your friend is your friend. And I didn't believe Taylor to be that type of person. But now it seems like she's just mad at Blake for doing something to her. Like, that's different.
The only way for Blake Lively to save any ounce of her career, and when we say career, I mean like maybe an indie film like 10 years from now where she's not even on camera, is one, she's got to settle this out of the courtroom, because this is going to keep driving up daily headlines until next year. So if you really want this to end, you would settle this out of the courtroom. And then I think what would be really powerful is if she admits like a mental breakdown and goes to a rehab, even if it's just for a week. She needs to enter a rehab where then she could twist the public narrative and say that she had a mental breakdown. Because when you have some sort of mental breakdowns, it's hard for the public to say anything against that. She could totally spin this and come out with a documentary like years later. I'm not supporting Blake Lively, by the way. I'm just saying if she wants to twist things, this is what she could do. Settle this out of court, say she had a mental breakdown, go to a rehab, and then just live a quiet life with her family. But I think there's too much narcissism and trying to control the narrative at play. And there's no one around them, or maybe they do have people around them that are advising them to do this. Like, I don't see anyone who would be advising her to take this to court. It really seems like since the beginning, she truly thought that Justin Baldoni was not going to fight. And since he's fighting back, since he's providing all of the evidence against these claims, since all of the people who came out in support of you on set have also backpedaled, what do you have at this point? So it'll be really interesting. They're acting like they have bombshells that are going to be released in court with Sony producers and witnesses on set, like claiming that all of these things happen and backing up her allegations. But I don't see that at this point. I do not see how she could possibly win this court case. And if anything, this current information about potentially allegedly threatening Taylor Swift has completely taken you down, because as we mentioned, even the people who were defending Blake Lively this entire time, when things are allegedly coming out that you're now trying to threaten Taylor Swift, you've lost their vote. Like, they are out. Checkmate. It'll be really interesting to continue to follow this case. If you want to get caught up on the deep dive that we also did on Ryan Reynolds and his involvement and the things that he's been saying, and just dive deeper into what's actually going on, I want you to watch this video next. Hit that subscribe button as we're going to continue to stay updated on this and so many others. Thanks so much for joining the hive, my fellow beekeepers. I will see you in the next video.
Show me life, show me love.